This is EBS TV Reloaded.
The other stations are tuned in too.
All right, thank you for staying with us. It's Issues and Answers on the Broadcasting Service. My name is Josephine Eyimihi. This morning we'll be looking at the importance of non-violent approaches to conflicts. The importance of non-violent approaches to conflicts. And to some persons say, conflict, what has that got to do with me? We have conflict with us every day. As far as we are on earth, we always have conflict. It can be personal conflict, religious conflict, political conflict, even family conflict. Yeah, within the family there is conflict. But how do we resolve these conflicts so that the society will be good for us? This is what we'll be looking at it. There are other ways also, okay, maybe these court-related clashes that we have, oh, you kill this, I want to retaliate. No, there are other ways to resolve conflicts without spilling blood, without maiming anybody, but all will be good to go after the conflict is resolved. And there are processes to this conflict resolution. This is what we'll be looking at, especially as the 2023 election is coming close. There are a lot of things that will be going on, but how do we resolve these issues is what we're looking at this morning on Issues and Answers. And the person to talk on this, we have seasoned peacemakers. Yes, let me use that word. These men, the woman with us, they've been into conflict resolution, and they have a name for that. We have the executive director, Caring Arts Initiative, Mrs. Grace Obaikena. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Madam Josephine, and a very pleasant morning to our viewers at home. We hope to deliberate to have a beautiful society to dwell in the shortest future.
And if I may add, hey, it took me like more than 4 months to get this woman here. So just listen to her because she has something to tell us today. All right, we have the EGO, Local Government Area Coordinator of the Partners for Peace Network, Mr. Joshua Igometi. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me, and we hope to have a good time together this morning.
And we have a member, Edo State Drug Control Committee, Pastor Ewe Osifu. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Joe. God will help us.
All right. Let's establish this. Obahikela, when we talk about conflict, what do we really mean about conflict?
Okay, to the barest layman's understanding, conflict is the ability to dispute or to disagree on someone's opinion, believing that you have your stand, you have your right, you have your proofs to show that you're right. When my opinion, your opinion, my feelings, your feelings does not come in agreement with another, this is conflict. And it varies from individual, like you said, to family, to society, to country, to subsections of life. And that's conflict.
Do you have something to say about that?
Yes, I would add that in simple terms, conflict is simply a disagreement between two persons or two groups. Okay, as long as two persons or two groups are not in agreement, there is conflict. And conflict doesn't have to be violence. Okay, as long as there is disagreement, even if they are still in talking terms, a conflict has been created. And so conflicts are usually neither bad nor good. They are neutral. Okay, it is the outcome of a conflict that tells us whether this conflict is bad or a good one. Some conflicts actually end up with a positive result.
Yeah.
The fact that two persons disagree on something and they are able to sit down and have a dialogue and discuss and share ideas they get to understand that, issue better, and it has a way of bringing a stronger bond and unity amongst them if they are able to dialogue and handle that conflict properly. So that is a situation where conflict can become positive. But conflict that is not well managed or handled could result to violence. So the moment two persons or two groups are in disagreement, conflict has been established.
All right. So what else you for?
See, conflict as misunderstanding and lack of knowledge. When people don't understand something, they fight it so that they are able to find their feet.
All right.
That is conflict.
Why do we have conflict? Let me stay with you. Why is it that there is this conflict, whether positively or negatively? Why do we have it?
From what I just mentioned before you asked me this question, there is already a misunderstanding. We do not understand each other. Your point of view is not in agreement with my own point of view. So what we need to do, probably from different angles, from different places, we are not able to see one-on-one to settle issues. Sometimes the barrier, communication, there's a disconnect along the line. What I'm saying, you are not getting it. Even the level of communication is, until you understand what I'm saying, there might be a very serious problem. You remember what happened in 1914 about riot? What happened is that the white man said that women should not pay tax, but interpreters said women should pay tax. That was where the problem came from. Misunderstanding and the disconnect.
All right. Okay, let's see the causes of conflict. Why do we have this conflict? What are the causes? Why do we have it?
All right, when we're trying to look at the definition of conflict, I was a bit reserved because I believe we're going to be dealing more on the approaches to why we should have non-violence. And when we're talking about some of the causes, if you look at it, it's interwoven because on a daily basis, I think conflict is even a healthy lifestyle because if you are not conflicting over something, you will be able to measure out the best ways to approach. And one of these ways is when dialogue are not properly presented. I have an issue, just like the instance my brother gave. I have an issue, I want to present it to you, and I'm presenting it to you in a wrong way, presenting it to you in a harsh way. A lot of people talk, but you don't know the right time to talk. You cannot go to a place where people are aggrieved because you want to say something. You use words that are nonchalant or that are comic. They will see you as the wrong candidate for that environment. And then it can lead to strike. And some of the reasons why we also have conflict is lack of knowledge and understanding. If you should be able to live in a society where you will avoid conflict in your day-to-day activity, you should be able to understand your environment. I'll use, just like we were joking before, the life programs, an environment where you know little to these people can use their leg to roll bottle. And you go there and you take for granted the things that are of importance to them. They will certainly retaliate. And if that is not quickly handled, it can degenerate to violence. Another reason why we should, why conflict always come in our day-to-day lifestyle is that humans naturally, or the environment has groomed human beings to be competitive in almost everything they do. And because of that, I want to be more than you. I want to be better than you. I want the society to see me doing things more than you. Then I will always want to antagonize the things you do. All of these things are things that can easily arouse conflict within the home, within organizations, within the society, and even in the country. Recently, when you see those that are religiously faithful, you will see that they have a good understanding of what life should be. But we have those that comes from the back door. They will pick one or two sentences that are not complete. They will use it to stir up, especially in these social media issues that you see today, everybody fighting. And that is a misinterpretation, a misrepresentation of a right message. So we have different, like I said, it differs as the sector or the section increases.
All right. Thank you for that, for establishing that. We just need to go through this route. So before we come to how conflict can be resolved in a non-violent way. But before we get to that place, what are the effects of conflict, Mr. Gometi? The effects of conflict.
You mean the results of conflict?
Yes, when I say the effect, yeah.
Okay. conflict, like we have established, can be positive and negative. Okay, it is important that people realize that conflict is a healthy part of society.
Yeah.
Okay, if everybody agrees on one thing, then some persons are pretending. Everybody cannot be for one political party. Everybody cannot believe in one certain religion. There must be differences. It's a healthy part of society. Okay, so it is how we handle these conflicts that determines the outcome. So if conflicts are handled and managed properly, the effects or the results will be a healthy society.
What if it's not managed properly?
If it's not managed properly, then it will result to violence.
Destruction.
Okay, so we need to always keep that dialogue door open. Okay, people must always talk. People must always be allowed to talk and express their differences and their opinions. Okay, that is one way to create a healthy society. A situation where one side or one voice is being shunned or shut down. Okay, sometimes the government is fond of doing this. They think they are trying to avoid conflict by shutting down a certain group or voice or ideology. No, that's a wrong approach. People should be allowed to talk. Of course, we know there are insightful statements and insightful groups that need to be dealt with. But generally, let's keep the dialogue door open. Everybody should be able to talk.
All right, you've gone before.
Yeah,
You're already there. You're already there. Let me come to Obaikena before I come to you. What are the importance of resolving conflicts in a non-violent way? Does it have any benefits?
Yeah, it does. Now, if violence is being resolved in a violent way, it degenerates, it breaks that conflict to a worse extent. But if it is resolved in a non-violent way, the level of peace you achieve is enormous. Then there is always an after effect of every conflict resolution. When you're doing monitoring and follow up to every resolution you have done, you want to see the impact of that resolution. Have people now start living together with this understanding? Are they now ready to, with the understanding they have, cut it across to, sometimes when we're doing peace program, we pick some key stakeholders and give them this training and enlightenment. Now, the fallout from such program is, when you go to their community, do you see the evidence that they came back to pour back what they have learned? Now, one of the effects is that you see the community are now singing one song. If it is a cross-community conflict and it has been resolved, if there is a good, if it was done in a non-violent way, you discover that in the mouth of everybody in that community, they are saying one word, peace. But if at the end of that conflict resolution, everybody was not carried along, it was not successfully done, it was not, there's still form of violence in it, the people go back and re-strategize on the next move with which they are going to strike. So the importance of the non-violence right now is that it helps development, it brings about bound, it brings about improvement, it gives room for people to come develop, then it gives room for recommendations.
All right, Pastor Osifo, you have some of the importance of resolving conflicts in a non-violent way.
Bring peace. Very, very important, actually. Bring peace and make people to trust each other. When conflict is resolved amicably. If it is just done like that, everybody go with self-interest, different type of thing, strategy will be replanned, things are going to happen. But when it is well resolved, you talk, I talk, we have a basis of understanding, we have a basis of sharing, we just arrange, this is what should be your, we agree on that table, face to face. Even if not face to face, we agree on a particular parameter, and no quarrel. Then you see that they're from zone B or from zone A. If you send somebody, it will be, a person will be trusted. We just bring element of trust in the community or in the environment. That is what one of the things that it does about unity, element of trust. Then we can have confidence in ourselves. That person is representing all of us. Is doing what he says, we concur. Let us say, that thing that they say, no. Just like we mentioned here, There's no way we cannot complete. There's no way we not. It's a heady thing. It must be done. Anything I don't understand, if I ask you plainly, you are not getting it. Sometimes I start to be recognized. I can do something, go out of my way and say, okay, we now know you are there. Let's do it this way. So these are some of the things that go with it.
All right, thank you so much. Talking about the resolving conflicts in a very peaceful way in community, there are always processes to these things. What are the things to be put in place to ensure that we have these non-violent approaches to peace? Can you tell us the process? Because why I'm asking this, some people will say, okay, there's conflict, okay, let's resolve it. But in the process of resolving it, the thing will escalate more, and it will be worse than they didn't even call them for the gathering. So what are the process in order to resolve conflict in a non-violent way?
Okay, let me start by saying that I had a very remarkable experience many years ago. I was still in secondary school. It was one hot afternoon. I went to see a classmate, and you know, at secondary school, you know, students were so full of life, and we think we know everything, and we were just having this debate about governance and politics. And I remember the subject of discussion that day was that, you know, this country needs to break up. We need to fight for our rights.
As at then,
yes, we were talking about war. We need to fight. You know, we thought we were, you know, thinking about how we are going to fight for our rights. Let's fight. Let's break up. We can't continue like this. And as we were having that discussion, an elderly man with gray hair walked past us. I recall he passed, and then he turned back and came back to us. And he said, "My sons, did I hear you mention war?" And you won't believe, right there, this man just bowed his head down and was fighting back tears. We saw him literally, you know, crying. He raised up his head and said, "My son, don't ever wish in your lifetime that you experience war." And he walked away. I never forget that moment. Of course, that was a turning point for all of us. Okay? So people need to realize that this agitation to easily just pick up arms and fight as a way of resolving any form of conflict is not really the best option. Okay? When there are wars, terrible things happen. Your daughter can be raped in front of you. Killed. Your mom can be killed in your presence. I mean, war-torn countries, the trauma the survivors face is not something you wish for anybody. All right? Now, getting down to your question, I believe stakeholders in the society need to be trained on how to handle or manage conflict. You know, conflict management is now a specialized discipline. People study conflict management in the university. So we don't have to just count on the fact that, these people are elders. Yes, we know the fact they are elders, they have a lot of wisdom, but conflict management has been so studied and has become a profession with you know, principles, with theories, with rules, and stakeholders need to be equipped with them so that when there are conflicts, like we rightly said, because these things happen every day, we can employ those tools. There are conflict handling styles, for instance, in conflict management. Okay, there are tools for analyzing conflict. Okay, there is the conflict tree, there is the onion model, there's the conflict mapping. Okay, these are standards and best practices when handling conflict. Now, just to give you an instance, one of the conflict or some of the conflict handling styles, let me mention maybe two. There is one we call accommodation. When there is conflict, all right, both parties, or let's say one party, can decide that as a way of resolving this conflict, let's accommodate the other party. In other words, one party has realized that he can, you know, drop some of his grievances and just bow down for peace to reign and accommodate the grievances of the other party. That is one way conflict can be handled. Okay? Another way conflict can be handled is what we call joint problem solving. Okay, this is a situation where both parties come together. This is unlike accommodation where one is just putting his grievances aside and accepting the other. Two parties come together and say, okay, let's brainstorm. Let's discuss, let's argue, let's disagree and come to an agreement. Okay, that's another way you handle conflict. And sometimes, one way to also handle conflict is avoidance. If after exploring all options, you realize that in the best interest of everybody, I just need to walk away for peace to reign, that's another conflict handling style. So there are various styles there that are documented that stakeholders need to be trained and need to learn, so that when a particular conflict comes up, they can analyze it properly and determine the best conflict style to use.
Thank you so much. Let me come to Rekena. Who are the persons? He said, trained persons these days that are involved, not because the man has gray hair or he has stayed in that particular place for more than 50 or 30 years to be involved in the peace process. Who are other persons? Who are those that will be involved when there is, for instance, let me use this community, or this ASU strike, for instance. Now, who are those that need to be there to ensure that the peace process is actualized?
Okay, you heard him use a word called stakeholders. And sometimes when we use the word stakeholder, is like an umbrella. Depending on the conflict that is on ground, you have so many persons today, apart from them being trained, they have been in the practice. And most times where I also don't undermine or completely buy the idea of overruling the elders is because in management, experience is always of key interest. So you have people that have studied conflict resolution. Not all of them are qualified, but those that have practiced and have good results to show for what they have done. People bring issues and case to you. You're not being biased. You're not judgmental. You're not side-taking. You're qualified to be a peace resolutor. And because you did it well with the case of a family, does not mean you're going to do it well with the case of a community. And that is why training and continuous training is also advisable. If it is issues as relating to religion, you know certainly that you are going to be picking the topmost people from each of these religions that are experienced and a bit aged. Then you cannot bring an external person that has been trained on issue concerning peace resolution. I just wanted to quickly add while my brother was talking. The method with which we can use in resolving conflict in a non-violent way, it's almost the same thing the way you use in resolving conflict generally. The difference is the methodology.
Okay.
Now you have to say, if this must be a non-violent way, just like we have said, the room for a broad communication. Sometimes some people will not let things go if they not air it out. So there are different meetings. You shouldn't just rule out your mind that this conflict is going to be resolved today and today. Trust me, a one-off resolution, you may not achieve what you want. So there is time allocation. You allot time. Is it 3-time meeting? Is it 4-time meeting? Once that is agreed upon, you give your ground rules for communications. Just like most times we hear you media say on this discussion, you don't use foul words, you don't use insultive words. You allow that register. And while people are airing view, other people don't contribute so that it does not aggravate. Give equal time for each party to express their grievances. The more you talk it out, it's a therapy for you to okay, you're talking it out, is easing you off. Then you must be able to sensitively, unlike the general resolution, when you want it in a non-violence way, you choose the right environment. If you know these persons for the first time, choose a place where both of them will not be biased about. Let it not be said, no, it's because it's this person's place. What if he attacks me? Choose an environment that is conducive for both. And you as the mediator or you as the resolutor shouldn't be the sole decider. Allow them bring their suggestion. Then you give them the suggestion like, can we do it like this? Do you think we should do it like this? Then secondly, the use of word, which we have just mentioned. We talked about communication. We talked about dialogue. And we should earnestly always try our possible best not to be biased. Then when people are talking, you don't use words that will bring them back to the States. Then if after your first meeting you're not progressive as concerning the actual results you want, at the next one, don't feel bad about it. Go back, re-strategize on what you're going to do the next time, so that when you come the next time, they will have a more conducive environment. Then lastly, make sure there are evidences seen for forgiveness, because you cannot say you have resolute over an issue and the grudges are still there. And once you have done this resolution, there is a follow-up and keep following up. Now I want to use the family as an example. If we don't get this right at the family front, we can't get it right at the community, neither can it be at the general society. So when as a parent you are resolving conflict, you don't speak when you are angry. So there are times for break. When you notice that this issue is beginning to hit you, you are biased and you want to control it, you don't want to sell it to those you are resoluting over, you can have a break. So even as a parent, you are resoluting issues between two siblings, you shouldn't be angry. If not, your judgment is going to be biased. These are issues we look at when you are resolving in a non-violent way. The speech, the choice of words, our environment, hindering one from expressing. Even if the person is shouting, at that point in time, let the person be. Let him express himself freely. It is when the person is done, sometimes you will see a deep breath be taken. That is your first step of achieving that resolution.
Well, thank you so much. That's elaborate. And I've learned a lot from that. Beside where Osifo, she said so much.
Yes.
But from your own view, do you agree with her concerning these approaches?
We are talking about resolving without fight, without quarrel. I think it's art. When it comes to this conflict thing, like we said earlier, it's everywhere. There's nobody that does not face it every day, even the tongue and the teeth. There's conflict everywhere. It creates a better understanding. In total, I think we deserve more so that we can learn from that.
Okay.
More, we can learn from that.
All right, thank you so much. I wanted to add body language also when you were talking
Yes,
about the
very
body
key.
language. You may not say something, but your
Use
body's
your
like
eye.
your eye. Maybe the other person is talking, you say, that means you are sending. Do you agree with that also?
Yes, yeah.
That body language.
Yeah, I think what I would say is that we need to understand that every time there's a conflict, just like with doctors and medicine, you have to diagnose correctly
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
what exactly
It's the cause.
is the cause, the nature, and the consequences of the conflict. Okay, this is where conflict analysis tools come in. That was why I mentioned the idea of training. People need to be taught these principles. All right, it is after you have correctly analyzed a conflict, you can now know the exact conflict resolution method to use.
Proper
All right?
diagnosis.
And you have to diagnose correctly. Then you now know out of the many options of different ways you can handle the conflict, you now know the correct one to choose.
All right, before I ask the next question, let me stay with you.
Okay.
We've been saying this, that there is no productivity or no good life with conflict or war. Why is it that we always have this problem? You see the ASU strike, you see the kidnapping, everything is all about some issues not being resolved. Why do we still have this problem of conflict with us despite the knowledge that is around?
Okay, well, there are a couple of reasons, but let me just mention one or two, which falls back to what I just said earlier. Some of these conflicts that have persisted for long are due to the fact that these conflicts have not been correctly diagnosed. Okay? Take for instance, the recent EndSARS protest. Okay? Just going by the name, if you ask anyone, why are people protesting during the protest? You say, oh, it's because of SARS, the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. Okay? But it was intriguing to note that when it was time for the youths who were protesting to state their demands, why they are protesting and what they want. If you saw what was popularly shared all over the internet, it went far beyond the police. So which means if a conflict analyst was going to analyze that conflict during the conflict, he is not supposed to just, base his analysis on what they are really saying on the street. Okay? There is a particular conflict analysis tool called the onion model. The onion model uses the concept that onions have, different layers.
Folds.
As you get to the first layer, you think you have seen everything about the onion. You open that first layer, there's another layer inside again. So the model stipulates that the first layer is usually the position the warring parties are publicly stating in public. Using the EdSARS protest, for instance, they are saying they are protesting against police brutality. That's the first layer. And if you take that at that level, you miss it, you diagnose wrongly. Because when you peel up that first layer and go to the second layer, now you are getting to what they really want, which is different from what they are saying, the placards they are carrying. All right? So you dig further, you find out what they really want. But you don't see stop there. You also dig further to the next layer, you get to what they really need. Okay? So it is when you have broken through these three barriers and you now address the need that's behind that conflict that you have really provided a solution. So these are techniques that people need to learn about how conflicts are.
And you don't just get it in the streets.
Yeah.
You have to be properly trained.
Yes.
When the persons involved in a situation, they are not ready for settlement. They just want the conflict to keep going on. In that case, what can be done? They are not ready to come to the round table. They just want to get their own and do whatever they want to do. In such case, what do you do?
And funny enough, that's what is happening in our society today. People fuel conflict because of the things they tend to benefit from it. And my advice in such cases is, just like my brother would say, analyze that issue, look at the real benefits or those benefiting from that conflict. Trace it down to what they are benefiting and how or where what they are benefiting is coming from, then shut it down. I will always use the word, there's this biblical word that I use all the time, identifying the source.
Where it's coming from.
Where it's coming from. You have identified that these people are fueling. You know, the issue of kidnapping in those days was a one-off issue that happens. And now you discover that once kidnapping has taken place, they call the family. But before you know what is happening, it was undermined. Nobody paid attention to it then because it was not a major practice with us. So let me use the word, especially in the South. We were used to armed robbery, we were used to burglaring and all that. But because the burglaring, the armed robbery, was not pinned down, it bettered kidnapping. And when kidnapping takes place, you see people, they started responding, oh, the idle man out there says, whoa, there's business in this. And before you know what is happening, it's now becoming a major challenge, not just in the country today, but everywhere. Now, what I think is that the government, the society, the community should sit down and start strategizing on ways with which this can be prevented. And that was why the issue of local policing came in. Now, giving these people rights training also came into the place in trying to prevent further reoccurrence. Now, for these persons to completely say, why should this person benefiting from this conflict? What can we do to stop it? There is always room for changing people's responsibilities and role. This person is in this position for this time, and this is the agitation people are receiving. Why not change the person and see if that agitation will continue? Because if the person that is just coming have a better idea and is not all concerned about the profit, the person will work to prevent that conflict. But if that person that is benefiting from that conflict remains in that position, the problem will not be resolved, because what is my concern? What is my care? As far as the fight that they are fighting, they are buying guns from me. They are buying cutlasses from me. They are buying hard drugs with which they hide under to induce themselves from me. Now, if these persons are tackled, they don't have these things at their disposal. They don't have what they are going to war with. There is a tendency for restraining. Now, when it is a community conflict, okay, for now, just like the our late Oba did, let all those in charge of land sharing and all that drop your position. Whoever is going to get land now, come directly to this.
You know, Oba,
yes. Okay. Sorry. The President Oba. You know, you dissolve the people benefiting from this conflict. You discover that there is a huge, even if not 100%, a 50%, that conflict will die down. Let me use an example. Recently, we did a research, because the Partners for Peace have been in Edo State for a very long time, doing so much on the ground which nobody knows about, resolving so many conflicts in the rural, the nook and crannies. And so the sponsor of this program, they said, okay, we want to see the impact of these people in our state. And they took external bodies that are not part of this P4P to go to these villages and to these communities to ask questions. You needed to hear testimonies. You know, some of them as much as when vehicle is passing by, because it's a communal setting, children don't take precautions when they want to cross, so there is always accident on the road. And before now, you discover once accident happened, the youth will come out, they will burn and all that. So after the intervention of these peace mediators, they now came to the conclusion that what can we do? This place is an express, it's smooth, and anybody on it will want to explore and enjoy it. One of the resolutions they took is to make speed break. And they told us that because of that, the high rate of accident had reduced. Now, that was a very huge conflict. They said it's as bad as sometimes they even kill the drivers. Now, lives are being taken. Lawlessness was the order of the day. But because of one good intervention, that community is enjoying peace today. So what I'm saying is, the persons that were before now enjoying from this conflict, is either you take them off completely, or you just like change them and see the effect or the impact of this new person. And if there's anything positive, then know that the person there is the major cause of this problem.
All right, thank you for that. I'm just wondering if those in authority, for instance, are in a position and there is conflict in their land, if that one would not say, okay, let me resign, as what we have in developed countries. When there is conflict, like the Sri Lanka case, the person will just resign. But in our own country, all right, so we get there. Even in UK, Boris Johnson have to step down so that there will be peace. I hope Nigeria will learn from there and we will get there. Let me come to Mr. Igometi. Let me use this word. Explain how conflict resolution enhances national peaceful coexistence. Explain how this peaceful resolution of conflict enhances peaceful coexistence within the society.
Okay. The truth is, people can only live in peace when they feel there is justice, there is freedom, and they can go about their legitimate businesses, okay, without any fear. All right? And this is where we need to be very honest to say that the government has a very critical role to play. Okay? And that is why the democratic process ensures that if you feel a particular government is not doing well, you can vote that one out and bring another government in. The truth is that the countries that have enjoyed phenomenal development, all right, there are countries that are at peace. Countries that are always fighting, always having wars. I mean, there are some countries, you mentioned their names today, and then you just remember suicide bombings. In fact, you wonder if one has happened yesterday. You know, developments cannot take place there. Okay, people cannot innovate. People cannot think. People's creativity and innovation dies because they are thinking of how to dodge bullets and how to go and hide somewhere. That's what their brains are now engaged in doing. Okay, they cannot be productive. All right, so if we want to see economic growth and development, we must pay attention to peace. All right, it's not enough to just equip policemen and give them equipment. That is part of the process, but the needs of the people, the agitations of people, genuine agitations should be addressed. I look forward to a society in our nation where there is a continuous open discussion on issues. I watch the US, I follow US politics a lot. I notice there's something about their, what we call our National Assembly here, theirs over there. There is always, you know, somebody from some group or somewhere who is always coming, almost on a weekly basis, to interact with, you know, their senators and their rep members. Somebody from one group, even crazy groups. There are some groups in the US now that believe men can be pregnant. They don't just shut them down and say, you know, you are stupid and all that.
They listen.
They bring them, talk. They ask questions. They say, okay, talk to us. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? Just take note. You know, rub minds, debate. It's always on a consistent basis. Okay? That open discussion, that look, you are free to come and say that stupid, crazy thing that you have in your mind. You know, helps people. Of course, it gives room for some people to just go into extremes and talk nonsense and do all kinds of crazy things. But it also allows people to be free to express themselves. And that's why you see in the US today, you know, most of the giant global companies we have, they are from there. People are able to think and create stuffs, you know, Facebook, Twitter,
except
what have
this
you.
gun shooting right now that is going on.
So when you are thinking every day of how to dodge bullets and how you would, you want to check the news and hear what is happening so you know if you are safe as you go out, you can't spend the same time you are spending on thinking about your life. Yeah. So if we want to see economic development, we have to pay attention to genuine agitations. Allow people to talk. Let them come and say they are stupid if you think it's stupid anyway, because your own idea can be stupid to somebody else. Let the discussion line be open. Everybody should be free to talk, and then you see development.
You say, well, let me come to you now. There are some conflicts where we have drug users. You are from Edo State's Drug Control Committee. In that kind of situation, when you find that, they say dig deeply, you diagnose of what is the cause of this conflict. And in the process of it, you find out that most of them are into drugs. This is your feed. What can be done in resolving this kind of conflict?
First of all, let me quickly add to what my friend said. Whether you're in the family or group or person in the office, listening here is key. Listen is key.
Listening ear.
Yeah, is key in conflict resolution and for development. Additionally, I want to say that even at the political sector or at the governmental level, sometimes they use conflicts as a distraction to stay away from the necessary development.
Very correct.
And some of them are very, very greedy, especially the agitators. Some of them are very, very greedy. You know, it is like Oliver asks for more. You just do one as the human needs, he asks for another. Yeah, sometimes when I look at the issue of ASU strike, I'm surprised every day one thing or the other will yell. I think we'll be, every one of us, whether government side or agitator side, will be reasonable enough to get something, because what this government did do today, I'm sure the next government will do it. Now, coming to what you just asked, it's very easy and very difficult to take care of people already involved in drug when they come to issues of conflict. And you know, drug is either connected or is actually the one fueling it. Even this thing we are trying to dodge gun, dodge cutlass, people don't just do it with their normal head. When somebody is really correct, is not under any influence, nothing is pushing him. It's not easy to just take gun and to share another person's blood. So it's really a terrible thing, the issue of drug. What happens is that when such a case is happening, we thank God we have so many government agencies. We look at that particular area and know the type of thing that is pushing them. Definitely you expect the community that produce cannabis. There should be some conflict there. Especially when small thing about land dispute, before you know they started carrying cutlass and here and there and killing themselves. And that's already showing that there's an inducement somewhere. So what we do at the level of drug control, we have to look at that area and see what we can do to change the crops, do one thing or the other to help the people that are in that place so that they be reasonable. You see, when you are saying you are coming to a resolution table, reasonability and maturity must be involved.
And you should be saying, and not taking something before coming to. It's like, so we come to the resolution table and be very hyper.
It's already too high, I cannot understand it.
And already high.
Seeing every man as double and things are becoming
Seeing them like trees. All right, that's the most we can take on this show. We just have a lot to say, but the discussion we keep going on and going on till we all get it right. That there is no progress in a warlike condition. Never. We just need to stay together till Baba God will call us home one day. But just let's live peacefully and make planet Earth a better place for us to live. This morning we've been looking at non-violent approaches, the importance of non-violent approaches to conflict, and persons who you've been listening to, you've been hearing their voices. We have Joshua Igometi. He is the EGO Local Government Area Coordinator of the Partners for Peace Network. Thank you, sir, for your thoughts this morning.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
And we have the Executive Director, Caring Hearts Initiative, Mrs. Grace Esi Obaekena.
Thank you for
listening. Always a delight to have you. Thank you. And we have Pastor Ewehel Sifo. He is a member Edo State Drug Control Committee. That's the show this morning. Thank you for staying. My name is Josephine Eimihe. Do have a productive day ahead. Good morning.
This is EBS TV Reloaded.
The other stations are tuned in too.